I was on a call with a brand doing over 500K a month, and they were spending over 200K on Amazon PPC. ACOS was 65 to 70%, and TACOS was over 30%, and they were making like little to no profit. So why was this happening? Why does scaling your Amazon PPC budget kill your profit? This is a universal issue every Amazon seller deals with when they want to scale further, and they're wondering, do I increase my budget by 10, 30, 50%? But whenever they do that, performance doesn't hold and they're like, what do I do from here? So in this video, I'll go over all the common mistakes brands on Amazon make when trying to scale and what the proper way to scale actually is. The first thing we need to understand is that PPC doesn't kill profit itself. It's bad scaling strategies that you implement. So when you scale PPC, you are not just getting more of the same. Most people think if I'm doing X amount of sales, spending this X amount, if I increase my budget by 10, 30%, it should stay the same since it's not that much of a difference. But that's not how it works because so much changes in between that. So one of the biggest things is that when you spend more, typically you are going to be in more competitive auctions. So for example, if you spend more on a keyword, you increase the bid by 10, 30%. Now you might appear top of search. You might be one of the top listings instead of being in the middle of the page. And you don't know how your conversion rate will scale at that level. Whether your click-through rate will stay the same, conversion will stay the same. You have no idea because now you're the top dogs here. You know, people search a keyword. Now you have a bunch of your top competitors and your listings. So you don't know if your click-through rate and conversion rate will stay the same when you were underbidding before and you were like maybe on the bottom of page one where you have a lot of people scrolling down. So what happens at these levels is your cost per click typically rises and your margins shrink because now you might be getting way more clicks, but you're not getting the same amount of conversions. You're just getting more people onto your listing, but they're not buying. So you're just blowing money. And the model starts to break and you're wondering, how can I even scale like this? So the issue with all this is that your system wasn't installed to account for this. If I increase my budget by 10, 20, 30%, will my click-through rate and conversion rate stay the same? You probably didn't account for that. Next thing is, for example, do I even have enough inventory to match this? Probably didn't account for that. Next thing is, this keyword, is it even specific enough for me to justify spending more on? Because you don't know whether it's going to be as relevant for you or that customers will behave in the same manner. So the biggest thing, as I said, is you move from cheap clicks to more expensive clicks. You know, at lower spend, you're typically capturing higher intent traffic because people are scrolling down and they're looking for other options to buy. And as you increase budget and bids, you're in more competitive auctions. So you have like little to no room for error where your cost per click goes up, competition increases, and your margins shrink. Now imagine if your product is $20 and your cost per click jumps to $5 to $6. Your entire model will break. Now another issue is if you start increasing your ad budget, but you're not competitive enough and not competing enough, your competitors will just steal your sales. For example, if you have lower click-through rate, weaker positioning, and lower conversion, and let's say you, for example, you end up paying for that click, but your competitors are running so many ads on your listing, and then they're probably more compelling to a customer. They click onto that listing and they buy from them. So now pretty much you're just rewarding your competitors for that because you're sending more traffic to your listing, but they're heading to a competitor's listing who's converting at a higher level than you. So it's the worst situation you could ever be in. Real quick, if you need help scaling on Amazon, hit the bio below to book your free audit where we walk through everything with you in depth, where you're wasting money and what the plan is to actually scale. So if you're interested in that, just hit the link in the bio. And now the third issue is that your PPC starts replacing organic instead of driving it. The number one thing that most people need to understand is that your PPC has one goal. Get me higher search results and organic rankings so I get more free sales. You don't want your PPC and organic sales to be the same. You want your organic to be much higher because that means your ads are actually doing what it's supposed to do, which is drive higher keyword rankings. So when things break, it's usually because your PPC becomes the majority of your sales and your organic declines. So maybe it's shifted from around 66% PPC sales and only 34% organic, which is horrible. That means your campaigns are not set up in a way to drive your listings up higher on the search results. So you're literally paying for every sale, which we don't want to do, and that's not scalable in the current state of Amazon right now. Another issue is that the campaigns you have set up don't have specific intent for what their goal is going to be. So most brands scale like they just increase their budget, right? Something looks good on paper, it has a 10% ACOS or whatever, 15%. And you're like, let me just increase your budget. And it doesn't perform the same because you didn't lay out exactly what the purpose of that campaign is. For example, when you have ranking campaigns, you have profit campaigns, you have defensive campaigns. Without structure, scaling will just turn into chaos. So how we do this for our clients is we have a bunch of PPC campaigns with different purposes. For example, a ranking campaign, a scaling campaign, defensive campaign, targeting competitors listing, new product launch, inventory liquidation. And all these campaigns have different ACOS levels, different bid levels, and how much budget goes to them in terms of priority. Because now we know exactly what the goal is for each and how much budget should be given to them. So if you don't have a system like this in place, especially if you're spending a lot of money on PPC, I highly recommend doing something like this so you understand what each campaign's performance is. Now, the biggest thing is your tacos level. We're not worried about ACOS or your tacos because ACOS can look manageable, but tacos tells exactly how much money is actually going into your account. So, for example, if your tacos is above 30%, it means a huge portion of your total revenue is going to ads. It's way too high, which means you have no margin. So that's definitely a danger zone. Even if you're scaling, it should never exceed over 20% because that's ideally the range you should be. Now, every brand's in a different phase. I understand your different categories. Some are selling supplements with different lifetime value. You're selling on the back end. But still, if your tacos is 30%, it means your PPC campaigns are not working properly. So then what is the right way to scale? So scaling should be controlled and data driven. And it should look something like this. Whenever you increase spend, you do it based off the data you have in front of you. Okay, that's the only way to justify whether to increase or decrease stuff. And ideally, you want to let it run for a test period between a week to 2 weeks, where you want to monitor KPIs, whether it holds, and go from there. If it's good, keep it going. If it's not performing well, identify the bottleneck. Maybe your click-through rate dropped. Maybe your conversion rate dropped. Maybe you are just not getting enough buyers. Maybe you can't justify the cost per click on this certain keyword. That's why you want to lever and justify at that number. But this is the biggest thing. You want to monitor every single KPI you have before you start scaling spend. So the most underutilized tool besides PPC and your ACOS and all that stuff is not tracking your click-through rate and conversion rate at a keyword level. I repeat, at a keyword level. Because this is where the top 1% on Amazon are crushing it. They understand for every single keyword, what are they getting click-through rate, what is the conversion rate, and how much are they spending on ads. And that's very important. The most generic brands are at the lower levels, just look at the ACOS and the increased spend based of that. But when you analyze your click-through rate and conversion rate on a keyword level, it lets you see exactly how you stack up against the market average. And using that data, along with your ad performance, you can justify whether to increase your spend or decrease it. So I actually have a video of this on my channel, so maybe I'll link it somewhere above here. Or you can go to my channel and just type in how to unlock Amazon growth with the ICAP funnel. Pretty much what this does is, you want to go to your Amazon search query performance report. So you have to go under brand analytics and go there. When you're there, you want to go to ASIN level. So put your top ASIN in, and you must understand that it only works if you have enough search volume. And when you go there, it's going to give you all of these search queries right here. And what you want to do is you want to analyze what your click-through rate and conversion rate is compared to your market average. This is very, very important because if we want to increase our budget on a specific keyword here by 20-30%, we first need to understand whether our click-through rate and conversion rate are good enough. Because for example, if we're below the market average and our competitors are better than us, why would we ever increase our spend? We're going to just waste money. We're going to get clicks and we're not going to get any conversions. So there's no point. Versus if we see a keyword that we have a really good click-through rate and conversion rate better than the market average, we can justify to increase our spend based off that. We can also look into how our campaigns for that keyword are performing right now to also justify that, because then you know exactly how it should work when scaling, if everything holds. Because if you don't do something like this, you're not going to scale efficiently. You're going to be stuck and waste money. But the top 1% of sellers do this every single week, every single month. They look at the numbers, break down at a keyword level to identify and justify how they can scale further. So literally follow this on the screen right here. Pick a keyword you want to scale based off the data. For example, you're on the bottom of page 1 forward and you want to move to the top. Then go to your Amazon search query performance report, look at that keyword for your top product, look at your click-through rate and conversion rate, and compare it to the market average. If it's below market average, do not scale your PPC budget yet. First, fix your listing. Can I improve my main image? Anything above that? Can I improve my offer, for example, my pricing? Anything about my infographics to get my conversion rate higher? Anything like that. Fix that first, then scale your spend based off that. Now, let's say you're already above the market average. Now you can scale because you are confident based off the data that I can add 10, 20, 30% to my budget and it shouldn't move too drastically, right? That's the most important thing. Now, obviously, when you do that, every week you still want to go into your search term report and analyze all the numbers to justify whether I can increase my bid, decrease it, and obviously you want to, track your keyword rankings consistently every single week, every single 5 days. Use whatever tool, Data Dive, Helium 10, Jungle Scout. Look at your keyword rankings to see if you're actually improving based off that. But it's very important. But the number one thing you want to get from this video is that you want to audit every single thing before scaling. You want to know every single number about your product and your specific funnel. So getting that impression, getting the click, and getting the actual conversion. You want to analyze all this on a keyword level to scale further. You then want to track your tacos, not just your ACOS, because that is the only thing we actually care for. And we want to structure our campaigns, which I showed you through that chart of all the campaigns we set up for ranking, profit, defensive campaigns, each with a specific ACOS level and ad spend that you're okay with based off it hitting its specific goal. Now, the final thought, if your listing is not better than your competitors, just look at it and analyze it. Scaling your PPC won't fix your business or help you scale, because why would someone buy your product compared to someone else who's just a way better offer? So you really want to look into that first. Can I even rank high on a keyword, or can I even scale my PPC budget based on my actual listings and my products? If you're sending a ton of traffic to a listing with 3.5 star review, like 25 reviews, and your competitors are like a 4.5 or thousands, you're gonna waste money, right? Let's be as transparent as possible in scaling and understand, why would a customer buy my product over the rest of the competition? So if you need help scaling on Amazon, hit the link down below in the bio to get your free Amazon audit. We work with brands doing typically a minimum above 20K a month to help them scale using our system. So to see if you're a fit, hit the link below and get your free audit, and we'll talk soon.